Right now, if you got hungry, you'd fix it in about 90 seconds. There's food in a cupboard, food in a fridge, food 2 blocks away, food that arrives at your door because you tapped a screen. Hunger, for you, is an inconvenience with an expiration date. Now take all of that away and imagine hunger that doesn't end. Not for a day, not for a week, for a season, for a year, for as long as the land stays dead. That was normal for almost everyone who ever lived, and the things your ancestors did to get through it are so extreme that most people alive today would refuse to believe them. Famine wasn't rare. It was scheduled. Every hunter-gatherer group on Earth lived with a lean season, a stretch of months where the game thinned out, the plants died back, and the calories simply weren't there. Anthropologists studying modern foragers found the same pattern everywhere they looked. Body weight drops, fat stores vanish, women stop menstruating, children stop growing, literally. Their bones show growth arrest lines, thin horizontal scars in the shaft that record exactly how many times a person nearly starved before they turned 18. Some skeletons have 5. Some have 9. Every line is a season where a child's body gave up on getting taller so it could keep the brain running instead. So what did they actually do when the food ran out? The first answer is the one nobody wants to hear. They ate things that were not food. There's a category of plants anthropologists call famine foods. Not backup food, not survival snacks. Poison, essentially, that becomes survivable if you process it hard enough. Acorns are packed with tannins that will wreck your gut, so people leach them in running water for days until the bitterness washed out. Cassava contains cyanide compounds, and entire cultures built multi-step grading, soaking, and fermenting rituals purely to strip the poison out of a root that would otherwise kill them. In Scandinavia, during the worst years, people ground the inner bark of pine trees into flour and baked it into bread, bark bread. In Ireland during the potato collapse, people ate grass, and the historical accounts describe corpses found with green-stained mouths. That detail has survived for almost 200 years, because nobody who saw it could forget it. Ahem. And here's the part that reframes everything. Those recipes were not invented in panic. They were remembered. Every group kept a mental library of things that were technically edible if you were desperate enough, and the elders were the ones who held it. The old woman nobody could hunt with, the man too stiff to travel, they were the backup drive. They remembered the famine of 40 years ago, and which valley still had roots, and how long you had to soak the bitter tubers before they stopped making people sick. In a good year, they were passengers. In a bad year, they were the only reason anyone lived. Then there's the body itself, and what it does when the food stops. Your metabolism doesn't just slow down, it reorganizes. First, it burns through stored sugar, which lasts about a day. Then it starts breaking down fat, and the liver converts that fat into ketones because your brain can't run on fat directly. That's the emergency generator kicking on. But when the fat runs out, the body starts doing something genuinely disturbing. It eats itself. Muscle gets dismantled for protein. The immune system gets throttled down because immune cells are metabolically expensive. Body temperature drops. Heart rate drops. The body pulls energy out of every non-essential system to keep 3 things running: the brain, the heart, and the lungs. And this is why famine almost never kills people with starvation on paper. It kills them with something else. Measles, dysentery, pneumonia, a cut that turns septic. Diseases that a well-fed body shrugs off, walk straight through a starving one. In almost every documented famine in history, more people died of infection than of hunger itself. Hunger just opened the door, but your body is also carrying something in the other direction, something that famine built into you. Every craving you have for fat, salt, and sugar is famine insurance. The reason a donut hijacks your brain is that for hundreds of thousands of years, the humans who couldn't stop eating calorie-dense food when it was available were the ones who had enough fat on them to survive the next lean season. The ones with better self-control died. You are descended from the ones who overate. That's not a metaphor. That's the selection pressure. There's a theory that goes further, and it's uncomfortable. Some researchers argue that the reason modern populations struggle so much with obesity and diabetes is that our metabolisms were tuned by tens of thousands of famines and have never been retuned for a world with unlimited food. Your body is still running famine software in an environment that no longer has famine. It's still storing for a winter that never comes. Now let's talk about the methods that get uglier. When plant foods failed, people went after animals nobody wanted. Rats, dogs, insects, bark beetles, the family ox that was worth more alive. In siege after siege, Historical records show the same grim sequence. Horses, then dogs, then cats, then rats, then leather. Boiled leather, actually. Belts, harnesses, shoe soles, boiled for hours until the collagen broke down into something like broth. It's almost no calories. It barely helps. But it does something psychologically important. It makes the stomach feel full, and a body that feels full panics less. There was also the strategy of simply making fewer people to feed. Anthropologists have documented that during lean periods, birth rates in foraging societies crash, partly because starving women stop ovulating, and partly because of deliberate choices that are painful to talk about. Groups made decisions about who got fed first. In many documented cases, hunters and mothers ate before children and elders, not out of cruelty, but out of a brutal arithmetic. The hunter brings in tomorrow's food. If the hunter collapses, everybody dies. It's the logic of the oxygen mask, applied by people who could not afford to be sentimental. And then there's the thing at the bottom of the list, the one that shows up in the archaeological record over and over and over again. In caves across Europe, human bones show cut marks. Not random damage, but precise, deliberate marks in exactly the places you'd cut to remove muscle from bone. Long bones cracked open lengthwise, the same technique used on deer and horses to get at the marrow. Skulls cleaned and shaped. These sites span tens of thousands of years and multiple continents. Some of it was almost certainly ritual, not hunger, because at some sites there was plenty of animal food available. But some of it wasn't ritual at all. Some of it was a group of people in the worst winter of their lives, making a decision that they would never speak about again. Here's the strange part. There may be a genetic fingerprint of it. Human populations around the world carry a version of a gene that appears to provide resistance to prion diseases, the kind of illness you get from consuming nervous tissue of your own species. The distribution of that protective gene has been read by some researchers as evidence that cannibalism was widespread enough, over enough time, to have shaped our DNA. That interpretation is debated, but the gene is there, in you, right now. So how did anyone survive at all? Not through toughness, through networks. The single most effective famine strategy in human history was knowing people who lived somewhere else. Foraging groups maintained deliberate long-distance relationships with bands hundreds of kilometers away, through gift exchange, through marriage, through obligation. In the Kalahari, researchers documented systems where people spent years building relationships with distant groups by exchanging objects that had no practical use at all. Beads, arrows, trinkets. It looked like decoration. It was actually insurance. Because when your territory failed, you walked to theirs, and the debt got called in. The gifts weren't gifts. They were a claim on somebody's food, filed decades in advance. That's the real answer. Fire, tools, and stored fat kept individuals alive for weeks. Social obligation kept the species alive for hundreds of thousands of years. Famine is not survivable alone. It never was. They also survived by moving. When a region emptied out, people left, and the human capacity to just walk somewhere else and figure it out is one of the strangest things about our species. No other large animal relocates across a continent based on a plan. We did it constantly, and the reason our ancestors ended up on every landmass on Earth probably has less to do with curiosity than with hunger pushing them over the next ridge. And then agriculture arrived, and here's the twist nobody expects. Farming made famine worse. Foragers ate dozens of different species, so when one failed, they shifted to another. Farmers bet everything on 2 or 3 crops, stored the surplus in one place, and tied themselves to one patch of land they couldn't leave. When the harvest failed, there was no backup and nowhere to go. Skeletons from early farming populations are shorter, sicker, and show more growth arrest lines than the foragers who came before them. We didn't solve hunger by inventing agriculture. We concentrated it, and then spent 10,000 years inventing everything else to dig ourselves back out. So go open your fridge, look at the shelves for a second. Every warning light your body has for hunger, the cravings, the fat storage, the way your mood collapses when you skip a meal, all of it was built by ancestors who lost. The ones who starved to death are the reason your body panics so easily. The ones who survived did it by eating bark, boiling leather, remembering the old woman's advice about which routes were safe, and walking 200 kilometers to collect on a favor from someone their grandfather met once. You will probably go your entire life without ever being truly hungry. That makes you the most unusual human being who has ever existed. Not the strongest, not the smartest, Just the first one, in 300,000 years, who gets to be full.